He had his gun, so he just swung it open.
I start to notice that, the atmosphere feels a little bit weird.
First thing he seen was this 6.5 foot tall, broad shoulder, dark hair. That freaked him out.
We hadn't talked to her about like life and death and what any of that means. She's 3 years old,
So we turned around. Suddenly there's a whole tree falling across the road.
And she was describing to us that, there was a deceased person that she could see visually.
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, where we tackle the ever-expanding history and mystery of monsters and supernatural madness every Monday. You can find us at CryptidClues.ca for more information, or even check out exclusive content and support us at patreon.com/CryptidClues.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Cryptid Clues. I am your host, Taylor, and today we're diving into some famous UFO encounters because apparently it is UFO week. Well, delayed by a week, but I never got that memo in advance, or I have no idea who labeled it as such, but it would be a horrible, horrible thing of me to ignore such a momentous occasion. So before we get into that, however, be sure to check out last week's episode in case you missed it. We explored some more remote professions that put individuals in a fairly isolated situation that would basically have inexplainable things and sightings occurring. Now, before we get into today's encounters, a couple of plugs. You can find us on our website, CryptidClues.ca, our social media channels, X, YouTube, and Facebook, as well as Patreon. In addition to all of that, you can reach us directly at CryptidClues@gmail.com. So let's get into this. Our first report occurred back on September 19th, 1976. Tehran, the capital city of Iran. The Iranian Air Force was quickly scrambling two F-4 Phantom jet interceptors to investigate an unidentified object. What prompted this response was the Iranian Air Force began to receive a series of frantic phone calls from residents that were claiming to see a bright unknown object in the sky. It is described as being just intensely luminous, multicolored, and very erratic in its movements. Now, the first jet took off from the Sharoki Air Force Base, but as it approached the UFO, it began to experience critical instrument and communication failures. The pilot, unable to continue, had to return back to base. As the second F-4 Phantom was dispatched, it was piloted by a Lieutenant Parviz Jafari. Now, he began closing in on the UFO, and he too was experiencing similar issues. With his aircraft's control malfunctioning, despite these problems, he actually managed to get close enough to observe the object and described it as brightly glowing, diamond in shape, and it was just emitting these multicolored lights. Now, at one point, the UFO had released a smaller object that accelerated towards his jet. Now, fearing for his own safety, he prepared to actually fire a missile, but his weapon systems failed as he was trying to engage. The smaller object, instead of attacking, performed this incredible maneuver where it circled around his jet and then it rejoined the larger craft. The UFO and its smaller companion then sped away at an incredible speed, disappearing from eyesight. Now, back on the ground, military personnel monitored the incident through radar, confirming the visual sightings and tracking the object's extraordinary maneuvers. The incident left both the pilots and the military officials baffled and very strongly concerned. Now, in the aftermath of the encounter, the Iranian military conducted a thorough investigation. They were unable to identify the origin of the UFO or explain the strange electromagnetic effects that it had on the jets. The incident was later documented in a report by the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency and the U.S. Air Force. The Defense Intelligence Agency report highlighted the credibility of the witnesses, the technical details of the encounter, and the potential implications for national security. Now, I think this is interesting. Of course, there's a lot of information that was shared here, but we don't know what's true. We don't know how much of it is actually public knowledge. There's probably a lot of other things that are behind closed doors regarding something like this, especially if it's coming out of the military and powers of government. However, I digress. Our next encounter takes us towards Europe. Now, August 24th, 1990, just months before the reunification of Germany, something amazing was happening in the skies over the Baltic Sea near Greifswald. This is a town in the German Democratic Republic. It's also known as East Germany. And this event has actually become one of the most significant UFO sightings in German history. And it was all starting around 8:30 p.m. when multiple bright lights were appearing in the sky, and witnesses were just saying they looked like glowing orbs arranged in a V formation. Now, they were visible for nearly 30 minutes. The lights were moving slowly, hovering, and shifting positions in ways that it just defied conventional aircraft behavior. It didn't make sense. And hundreds of people from various locations around the Baltic Sea were now witnessing this phenomenon. Among these people, you have military personnel, amateur astronomers, and just regular ordinary citizens, but they were all providing consistent accounts of what they saw. And several witnesses even captured the event on video, which later became crucial evidence for investigators. Now, what makes these lights particularly fascinating is the timing. This sighting occurred during a period of significant political change, just as the Cold War was ending and East Germany was on the verge of reunification with West Germany. This context led to various theories about the origin of the lights, ranging from secret military exercises all the way to potentially extraterrestrial visitors. Now, initial investigations by both German and Soviet authorities yielded no conclusive explanations. Now, some speculate the lights could be flares from military exercises conducted by the Soviet Navy in the nearby Baltic Sea. However, the precise formation and prolonged duration of the sighting did not align with that typical flare behavior. Others that came forward suggested the lights might be linked to plasma formations or ball lightning, which we've talked about in the past. It's a rare atmospheric phenomenon that can sometimes appear similar to glowing orbs, yet the specific conditions needed for such a phenomenon were not present that evening. Despite the numerous theories, there's still no definitive explanation that's ever really been confirmed here. Of course, it's because it's UFO, UAP related, so how can we confirm much in that regard? Now, it leaves these lights shrouded in complete mystery. To this day, it still remains one of the most well-documented and puzzling sightings in Europe. Moving on, our next case takes place only 4 years later and roughly 10,000 kilometers or 6,200 miles southward. The Warrenton sightings occurred in early 1994 near the small town of Warrenton in northern Cape Province of South Africa. This rural area, known for its tranquil landscapes, diamond mining, became the backdrop for one of the most compelling UFO cases in South African history. It all started on a quiet night when local residents noticed strange lights up in the sky. These lights were like anything they had ever seen before. They were bright, multicolored, and moving in erratic patterns. You can probably kind of sense a theme here between these encounters. Witnesses described them as glowing orbs, which seemed to dance and weave across the night sky. One of the most detailed accounts came from a local farmer who was out tending to his livestock. He described seeing a cluster of lights hovering silently above his fields, and as he watched, the lights seemed to change color, shifting from red to blue to green. The orbs moved with incredible speed, agility, and performing maneuvers that no conventional aircraft could achieve. The sightings continued for several nights, very consistently here, drawing the attention of more and more people in the area. Among the witnesses were actual law enforcement officers and other credible observers who reported similar descriptions of the phenomenon. This widespread observation added a layer of credibility to the reports, making it difficult to dismiss the sightings as being simply hallucinations or misidentifications. Local authorities conducted investigations but were unable to provide any concrete explanation. Some suggested the lights might be the result of military exercises, given the proximity to remote military installations. However, no official confirmation or evidence of such activities was ever presented. Others proposed the lights could be linked to atmospheric conditions or even the previously aforementioned ball lightning phenomena, yet the precise precision and consistency of the movements observed did not fit with the known characteristics of those possibilities. Now, adding to the mystery, some witnesses claimed to have experienced physical effects during the sightings. These included sensations of heat, tingling, as well as disruptions to electronic devices like radios and car engines. So again, more consistency here and reoccurring themes between these experiences, even though they're separated by years. So we're going to head northeast now towards India, just over a decade later. October 29th, 2007. It was around 10 p.m. Residents in one of India's bustling metropolitan cities, Kolkata, began reporting strange luminous objects hovering high above the city. Now, these objects were described as glowing orbs, radiating a bright white light. They appeared in a cluster, moving in a coordinated manner that defied conventional understanding of flight patterns. Again, that's the key here tonight. Now, witnesses from various parts of the city, including neighborhoods like Lake Town and Salt Lake, reported seeing these lights. The orbs seemed to change formation, sometimes aligning in a straight line and at other times forming shapes that resembled a triangle or a circle. The lights remained visible for nearly a half an hour, and this gave a lot of time for dozens and dozens of people to basically observe and document this phenomenon. Among these witnesses, you have those who are quick to rule out the possibility of it being conventional aircraft, weather balloons, or celestial bodies like planets and stars. Now, the lights moved with an agility and speed that suggested they were under intelligent control. That is described by the witnesses. Once local news channels picked up the story, broadcasting footage captured by residents on their mobile phones and camcorders, the videos showed the glowing orbs in the night sky, sparking widespread curiosity and debate. So, social media platforms just began to buzz with theories and speculations as people tried to make sense of what they had seen. Now, authorities, including the Indian Air Force and local law enforcement, were approached for explanations. However, they stated that no official aircraft or military exercises were scheduled. Now, of course, that's in the area at the time of these sightings. Now, this lack of a straightforward explanation only added to the mystery. Some skeptics suggested the lights might have been Chinese lanterns or drones used for local festival or event. However, the coordinated movement and prolonged visibility of the lights made this explanation seem pretty unlikely to many people. So, in closing, what is highlighted in some of these reports is the effect on national security, I would say. Of course, we have reoccurring themes like equipment malfunction, multicolored lights, changing formations, and these things just moving erratically. Well, I'm not sure what it means in the sense of national security anymore because we have weather balloons left, right, and center these days. I think, for what it's worth, that whatever these things truly are, they could cause harm if they wanted. But aren't we already harming ourselves? Not to put too fine a point on it, but if we are to believe that UAPs are piloted by extraterrestrials, then I see it as they're here for observation, intervention, or annihilation. Now, intervention and annihilation are perhaps similar on the scales, but we'll keep them separated for this explanation. To be here and observe a civilization more connected than ever before on this planet's multi-billion-year lifespan. Worldwide communication has only existed for roughly 200 years, starting with letters and then telegrams and so forth to where we are now. Since the internet has formed, it's only accelerated, but as a civilization, we are more so now than ever in disarray and disconnected from each other. Again, my own perspective, so take it as you will. This creates a unique dilemma where human civilization is on the cusp of advancing ahead, taking that next step, a step I imagine many other spacefaring civilizations can relate to, or the other scenario, something we've discussed before and is called the Great Filter. Now, in short, it serves as a hypothetical explanation as to why not many extraterrestrial civilizations exist out there. And it's because that we as a civilization will either push past our barrier and evolve as intelligent life or reach a high probability of self-destruction, be through natural disaster, war, plague, famine. There's so many different things. And the unfortunate thing is that most of these things would be human-caused or error. Hence why this hypothesis of the Great Filter is presented here. So for any advanced civilizations out there watching us, the crossroads we are at, it truly is something worth studying and observing in real time. As I imagine, it's not a scenario that occurs frequently, at least out in the vastness of space. And if you're a civilization that's already accomplished and superseded that, and let's say it's been a few hundred years and it's just the history books for you, I mean, it would be very interesting if you happen to find another advanced intelligent civilization, which I imagine is not easy, and then just study them and see how they handle this and what they do and learn from it. I think that there is a lot that you could learn from by watching humans because, of course, I can't compare a human to an alien because I don't know what an alien or extraterrestrial is like. But when I look at a human, humans are very passionate, very emotional, and driven by very interesting goals, I'll say. And so as a collective society and civilization, it's interesting how we've reached a point where we are now. But I digress. I could go on for that for a long time. Now, I mentioned intervention, and I can only imagine this as extraterrestrial beings that reside in these UAPs, UFOs, are landing and have had discussions with our political leaders. And of course, our political leaders are ill-equipped and I reckon unreliable in representing humanity on a galactic scale. So we see things appearing where maybe they shouldn't be. And then you get reports of black SUVs swooping in or military craft being dispatched from air bases. The things our political and government leaders can't control. The behind-the-scenes actions these unidentified objects are working on. And I dare I say they are doing something. It's either going into our oceans or just sticking into our atmosphere doing things. There's something going on. Now, lastly, annihilation. To me, this is the least likeliest possibility in my opinion. Do aliens value gold and silver like we do? Depends. You could look at Anunnaki, you could go down that rabbit hole. But for the sake of this conversation, we value gold for jewelry, but it does also hold wonderful properties for space technology. It's excellent at reflecting infrared light while letting in visible light, hence it's applied to astronauts' visors, and even on satellites due to its corrosion resistance and electrical insulation. Water, while it's the big thing for us all living here on Earth, we are learning that it exists in different forms throughout space. And any extraterrestrial species out there that could have evolved from different surroundings might not have a care in the world for our precious H2O. So this leaves me to think, well, there is us, 8.1 billion human beings as of 2024, and that's quite the stockpile. As for what you would use humans for, I'm sure there are a few movies that elaborate on that type of thing better than I would go into, but I imagine it's not pleasant whichever way you detail it. So we have sightings that are increasing, and with it, more misinformation. But through it all, public organizations and people are making great strides towards a more openly discussed world focusing on UFOs and UAPs. That stigma that is there of keeping people afraid of coming forward and talking about these things is being relieved, alleviated, and people are feeling more comfortable coming forward. And this actually will lead me to next week's episode. Now, if scheduling goes well, Reuben will be returning to the show to discuss aliens and a possible response to religion. How kind of invoking the name of Jesus Christ can have an impact on individuals that are experiencing UAP, UFO scenarios nearby in their lives, prominent reoccurring ones. And there seems to be a reaction here between the two. So this is a topic that we've wanted to discuss for quite some time. So be sure to tune into that episode when it drops in the feeds. Now remember, you can find more content at CryptidClues.ca, our social media channels, X, YouTube, Facebook, and Patreon. And if you ever wish to contact us directly, just to share anything or say hello, you can do so via CryptidClues@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Cryptid Clues. And remember, everyone, take care and stay safe.